You got it? It is 6:01. I have no idea. We'll wait. I have mine.
Look, we spilled.
I know.
I don't really want to share it, you know. I'm not the big talk how to share.
There you go. Yep.
Reminds me.
Yep. That's what we do.
I make when I say, how does this fit?
Ready, Judy? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this nice and balmy February 11th day. And it's balmy compared to a couple days ago, so we'll live with it and take it. Members of Council, you have an agenda before you. If I can have a motion, please. Councilor Lowry.
The council adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting of Monday, February 11th, 2019.
Okay. Administration and Council, any additions? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, move on to the public input session. This is where we allow residents to address council on anything that's not on the current agenda. Is anybody in council chambers like to address council? Okay. Seeing nobody, let's move on to presentations and delegations. Today we have a presentation, and it is Clearwater 92. So, good evening, gentlemen. If you can come forward, there is a sign-in sheet, if you can do that as well. And then you have to actually speak directly into the mics. If you can introduce yourselves before you start. Yeah.
I'm Rick Hector, and this is my brother Alan. We own the local water station. We'd like to make our case for a more equitable water price from the town of Stony. Without a better deal, we will consider closing the water station. The little presentation, it's about 5 to 7 minutes long, so I can just go through that. Great. I'd like to start with giving you a quick little history of our water station. The town of Stony originally owned the water station. The town learned from experience that it was a difficult undertaking. Facility was so small and capacity. Expensive upgrades were required, liability was a concern, vandalism and capital problems. The need for 24/7 staffing was a big problem. The town was made in Clearwater 92, purchased it in 19. Our current site was purchased, cleared, and grouted. The station was moved and became one of the first businesses in the significant upgrades were made to the facility in 2010. The facility was altered to get vehicles off the street and onto our lot. A large heated pad was built to increase safety and reduce wastewater hitting the streets. Our facility has provided an essential service and a revenue stream for the town of Stony Plain and ourselves for almost 25 years. Our main benefit to the town of Stony Plain. We pay our taxes and utilities on time every month. Our contribution to the infrastructure and operating costs of Stony Plain and the Water Commission over the last 5 years alone is just under $1 million. That's our total invoice amount less the actual import cost of the water. Water station is another reason for people to visit our town. I often see customers in line for goods purchased in our community. Customers purchase our water will often purchase goods and services from other businesses such as grocery, hardware stores, restaurants, gas stations, and coffee shops. Are we still a viable business? Years ago, Sturgeon County built a water station. More recently, West Interlake District built 4 new stations. Our facility is still bigger, better, and safer than any one of them was. We have 2 2-inch fill lines, 1 4-inch fill line, and a jug fill. All stainless steel plumbing, This means less lining up, faster fills in the water. We have a heated pad lighting and security camera specs for safety. We accept online payment for high volume customers, and going for smaller customers, we're about to install that credit card tap option for added convenience. It's a very good facility. Our business has decreased somewhat. We're down approximately 25% over 5 years, but we still have plenty of volume to effectively function, provided we can purchase water at a competitive rate. Our competition is able to purchase the same water off the same main line for less than the 2018 price, let alone the 2019 price, allowing them to retail for less than us. We are already on the high end of both cost and retail, so increasing our price is not an option for the tourists. According to the notice given to all utility customers, there were 2 reasons for the change: to encourage conservation of water and to distribute the costs more equitably among customers. We agree that conserving water should be a priority for everyone. The vast majority of our water goes to people that have cisterns. They do not have an endless supply of water. Our customers would sell the water outdoor plants or their lawns with potable water. I'm sure everyone knows someone on a cistern. You know they conserve water. They already pay for trucking or haul it themselves, paying easily 3 to 4 times as much for the same water. Everyone can always do better, but I believe our customers are already using less water than the average drinking home. Is the new price structure equitable to all customers? We know you have a tough job. We know you have to balance the books. We know there are many residential voices. We also know that we're an anomaly for it. We are hoping you consider looking at your new price structure from another view that may be more fair to all customers. Under the old system, everyone paid a basic charge for their service, whether you call it operational or infrastructure. Everyone paid a fixed amount to cover a portion of the cost and then paid another amount for the amount of water used. Under the new system, there is no fixed charge. Instead, we have a single, much higher charge based solely on the amount of water used. The new pricing system differs very, very much from other utility pricing. When I call a power company to ask why it costs so much, they say it's because they need to have the infrastructure in place. They need to have the infrastructure to supply the maximum amount that may be used at any one time by all of their customers. I don't like paying for it, but I understand that whether I use it or not, that infrastructure is there and ready for me. There's a cost for that service. We do not think the new pricing structure accounts for this fact. Every user, big or small, has the same infrastructure to their business or home. The infrastructure is there and has to be paid for. It does not take into account the fact that the cost per cubic meter to a low volume customer will be much higher. It does not take into account the fact that the cost per cubic meter to a high volume customer will be much lower. If you own a business and you open your doors but not sell anything for a whole day, you still have to pay your overhead costs. Yes, you do. Under the new system, you could have someone go on holidays for 6 months and not pay 1 cent toward the system that still has capital, operating, maintenance, and invoicing costs. On the other hand, you have someone like us that is maximizing the use of our portion of the infrastructure while still paying the same price for cubic meters. In the business world, high-volume customers are sought after, and they're thankful to business with a discount because it makes good economic sense. I believe we're being asked to supplement the low-volume customers. Income generated. We're informed that about 80% of the services use 20 cubic meters or less per month. We use 20 cubic meters as an average household use for this. Not the water we use in 1 month is equivalent to about 600 volts. That means that our single service generates the same income as 600 separate services. The cost to build, maintain, invoice, etc. Those 600 services has to be much higher than our single service. We understand that there's a cost to run pumps, etc., but it's not like our meters, our infrastructure, or anything else involved is being replaced 600 times as often as theirs. In reality, the average use in our industry is more like 13 cubic meters per month. Using that figure, it would be 900 services. Let's look at the price increase for customers. The increase of 20 cubic per month, 20 cubic meters per month is about a 4% increase. The increase to the average home using 15 cubic meters per month is actually a savings of about 4%. The increase to our business and indirectly to our customers is approximately 40%. We could approach F4 or the Water Commission, but it appears that almost all the increases in the town of Stony Plain portion of the water cost. Back out the F4 water, which has only gone up pennies in the last 5 years. The Water Commission, which also states pretty much the same, that leaves the increase on the town of Stony Plain portion to be 296%. So the price on your portion of the water bill has almost tripled to us, your highest volume customer. We're hoping that when this change was made, we were in oversight, and now with more information, a fair adjustment can be discussed and implemented. Closing, we've been in business in Stony Plain for 25 years. We attract spin-off business to our town. Our facility is current, safe, and functional. We generate the same water income as at least 600 homes. If we close, I guarantee your expenses will not drop as much as your revenue does. Our end users already pay 3 to 4 times as much and aren't consuming water. We're not trying to get out of paying our fair share, but it needs to be fair and reasonable for us to stick around. There are options, and we'd be happy to sit down and discuss them with you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'll ask members of council any questions of Clarity. Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Rick and Alan. Can you just let us know what would be your current charge to a customer for a cubic meter of water on a non-delivery service, so just a drive-up fill?
So if they drive up, it's $4.35.
Currently $4.35 a
Yeah,
cubic.
we have a little brochure with all the numbers in it. If you'd like to copy it. Or you can ask me directly when they're after the 50 rather.
If that could be provided, I think that would be great for council's understanding.
Yeah, so we're $4.35, and you can see in there. You can see what our competition is.
Thank you.
So the people we would directly compete with in our area, Sturgeon and Western Lake. Western Lake retails for $4 and Sturgeon at $3.60. So we're at $4.35 right now. Oh, I'm sorry. So the 2 competitors that we're up against is Western Lake at $4 a cube, Sturgeon's at $3.60, and we're at $4.35.
Your Worship, a follow-up?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you, and just, would you be able to give us an idea as to the split of self-serve customers versus delivery customers?
I didn't bring that. Yeah, I could get it for you. There would be a little bit more. There would be more truck, like the actual trucks coming in, like volume-wise. Number-wise, we have far more residential guys coming in, volume-wise, but cubic meter-wise, there would be more trucks in.
Any type of an estimate, like 60-40, 70-30? If not, that's okay.
I'm going to guess 60-40, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
60-40 trucks. Okay. Any questions of Clarity and understanding? Okay. I do have maybe a question for you. You mentioned that in our previous model we had a fixed rate for every resident within town Stony Plain that had a meter. You just mentioned that you provide services for about 600 residents at 20 cubic meters, and 900 residents at about 17 or 16 cubic meters at 13, which you said was the average. So does the town charge you a fixed fee for each one of those 900 or 600 units, those residents that you're supplying for? Because each member of our community is paying that fixed fee.
Even if you look at that, we're still getting price increase for each other.
Okay, Councilor Meyer?
Just as I had alluded to earlier, gentlemen, I was just curious how it is that you came to learn of our increase, our rate change.
We normally would hold the town of Stony Plain in December. We never really get prior notice of a rate increase. So we like to get numbers out so we like to post it prior so people have prior warning. And then we normally get all our high volume customers, all the trucks, we would like to give them notice so that they've got time to send letters out to all their customers prior to holiday, to show we have more expensive water. So that's when we first found out about it. So we had 2 meetings already with the staff just to discuss it. So that's how we found it.
Can I have a question to administration?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to administration. I'm just curious as to whether Clearwater received any notice when we passed this several months ago, or a couple months ago.
Your Worship, can't maybe say definitively, but between myself and the General Manager, we don't believe any specific notice was given.
Okay. So I can answer that. The question, Councillor Meyer, the answer is no. Because if you've been in council for about 2 years now, so the bylaw that we discussed and debated was actually the way that we were charging. So nobody would have been notified of that. And in December, when we do our corporate plan, when we approve that corporate plan, that's when that dollars and cents gets known as a fact. And that's when our communications guys will go out and talk to the individuals, such as Clearwater. Because anytime before that, they would not have an answer because we don't know what the new rate is until actual council approves the corporate plan, which is in December.
Okay. So just for clarity, so the first they would have heard about this would have been this December?
Yes. Yes, but for the change in billing, that was advertised just like for every other resident that they could have came and spoke, because we held that off as a member of council. Councillor Mattis, and then Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, through to our guests, Rick, if you could please go over again, what is the impact to your business, the financial impact to your business of this increase? And again, what your contribution is to this community in terms of, of the services that are provided and you talked about the numbers that are coming to this community. Just kind of give us an overview again of that. It was so quick. It's just nice to hear it again.
Yeah, I threw lots of numbers at you. Well, okay, so as far as your community, our contribution, if you take our total water invoice and you back out the actual water import, so it's basically $1 million we contribute towards infrastructure, or wherever you want to put it, into running the water system, we've contributed $1 million.
Over
5 years.
Over 5 years.
Over 5 years. As far as spin-off business, Spruce Grove does have a water station as well. I'm not sure what their philosophy is. Their water price is always so far above everybody else's retail that that facility is not being used. I have no idea why they even built it. So I would say that people could potentially be coming to Stony Plain rather than Spruce Grove because we do have a water station. I mean, you could swing through Spruce Grove and pay more, or you could swing through Stony Plain and buy your gasoline, your coffee at Tim's, whatever you want to buy here instead. I think there is some spin-off business that would happen. I definitely see groceries and such in vehicles when they're ready.
And then in terms of the overall impact to your business of this, can you kind of put some numbers for me?
Well, obviously, we sell water.
Right.
You've on the whole water bill, it's going up 40%. Right?
Okay.
I don't think there's too many businesses can just flat out absorb a 40% increase in their single water. We have
Okay.
one water.
Gotcha.
And I understand there's an increase. I'm trying to get across the difference in, when you have a high volume customer, I would have a hard time believing anybody who tells me it costs the same amount to service a cubic meter to us as it does to 600 to 900 homes.
Okay.
Like, it has to be far cheaper to deliver the service to us than it does all those other services. Right? It has to be a fact. I would just like some consideration for that.
Okay.
Anybody in the business world, if you're a high volume guy, I mean, you've all been to Costco. When you go to Costco, you can buy a case of soup for the same you can buy 3 cans of sodas. It makes economic sense. Volume, right? That's the whole philosophy is. I mean, we do a lot of volume out of a single pipe. It definitely costs far less to service us than it does all the other.
Okay. Thanks. Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions, or a couple of clarity points, and then questions for administration. First, in regards to the notifications and in regards to when this became public for a rate structure change, not necessarily the fee itself, but the actual structure change. We discussed this on October 9th for it to apply January 1st, and it was publicized in our local reporter on October 18th. So it was made public, it was out there. The actual set utility rate, correct, was in the corporate plan itself, but it was much earlier that we had made the determination to move from a fixed variable split to a complete variable system. So there's a little bit there just for clarity. The first question I have through you to administration is, we've heard from Clearwater some of their reasonings behind the town selling it. I'm just wondering, I know it was quite a while ago, but from an administrative standpoint, can administration give us any information as to why the town sold this commodity in 1994?
Your worship, through to Councillor Laurie, you know, actually, no. I didn't find much on record from the town's perspective as to the rationale behind the sale of it, and frankly, your worship, collective memory has lapsed on that particular topic, so I can't add anything further as to the rationale for the sale of the water station back then.
And then one more through you to Rick and Alan. Could you give us an idea, based on self-serve customers and contracts with haulers, approximately how many customers or how many homes would you estimate that Clearwater serves?
Just us, Clearwater, Home Water, there was other companies at that time. I had 800 customers at that time, but there's probably 5 or 6 more companies. Yeah. It's pretty hard to tell because you kind of know when a truck goes out. Normally, one load is one house, generally speaking. Pretty much everybody would take 13, 14 cubes of water. The people coming in hauling their own, so they have to make multiple trips. So we don't know how big their cistern is, how often they come in. It would be pretty tough, even for the trucks to figure out how many homes. I don't know if that guy comes in and takes a load. Well, every time he gets a load, it's not a different house. Obviously, he might go to some houses 5 times a year. He might go to some houses 15 times. I don't even know how he figured it out.
And then last one, your worship, through you to administration. So back when we discussed this in October, the definition that was given to us for the fixed fee that was applied and the variable fee that was applied was that the fixed fee was to pay for infrastructure, be placed into reserves for future projects, etc. And the variable fee was strictly for the water commodity itself. Can we just have administration provide a little bit more clarity on the previous structure as to the difference between the two fees that were charged?
Your worship, through to Councillor Laurie, that is correct. From the town's perspective, we still, under the variable rate, would fund the same way. So even though it's only one rate being charged, the variable rate, we are still funding the infrastructure the same way, putting money to the reserve, but it's who the revenue is collected from now at this point. So again, as a reminder, it is revenue neutral to the town, so we're not collecting any more dollars in total. And we would still be putting away the same money. It's about 700,000, I think, for the water reserve that would go in a year. And that's to fund our current projects. So, you know, the downtown redevelopment, when we're replacing water pipes, it would do things like that, as well as looking out into the future as to when we need to replace for future as well.
Thank you. Councilor Pacheco?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through to Rick and Alan, again, thank you for tonight's conversation. Just a couple of questions for clarity. West Interlake. Who runs West Interlake, and how far away from the community of Stony Plain is it?
I don't know exactly. I believe they're partially run and run. I don't know, to be honest, who they are. They're further west for the most part. So they're in Caswin, Alberta Beach, supposed to be going to Ottawa, and then further on they run.
So they're not a privately run company, they're, for argument's sake, a municipality or a county?
I don't know for sure. Parkland County.
Parkland County.
Your worship, maybe for clarification, West Interlake is a public water commission. essentially with elected officials appointed as a board. I'm not sure exactly their operating structure or nature, but it's essentially a regulated water commission, similar to that as Parkland, our water commission.
So, and secondly, Sturgeon County, is that run by the County of Sturgeon, or is that a private? So would be safe to say that both of them are quite possibly businesses that are not for profit, but rather a service that is being provided to residents for the needs of the community? Correct? Okay.
Follow up?
Nope, not right now.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking for some clarity maybe from administration in regards to some comments. There was the comments of the contribution to infrastructure and operating costs of approximately $1 million over the last 5 years. Based on the explanation of the rates, am I understanding correctly then the only dollars that would have been collected for the infrastructure side of things throughout those 5 years would have been the previous fixed $16.10 per month, the same as a residential home?
Your Worship, through Councillor Laurie, that isn't correct. So I did find some notes here that maybe help clarify, and in relation to your last comment too. So the variable fee in the previous model covered the commodity cost of the water, as well as the depreciation and a return on the utility, which was typically around 8%, whereas the fixed fee paid for the operating expenses, as well as there's some common cost recovery for the operations, so essentially to run the operations, and that was the $16.10 a month. I believe the $1 million that Clearwater was referring to, so that would have been the total billing to them, but that wouldn't take into account our costs to run the utility, so the staff costs that we're paying, as well as the infrastructure requirements.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and that's correct. It's the second time. That's what I was told about. The 16 was operating, and then everything else was working to the variable price. So all that I'm saying is the total amount that we pay as water bills, if you take out just the core water, so I took that out of there, so the remaining is all $2 million that goes towards infrastructure, operating, whatever your costs are. I'm just saying, yes, water aside, we put almost $1 million into running this system, wherever you want to put it.
Okay. You know what, let me ask a question, because I know it's on our notes, that the town does not charge you a sewer rate, a wastewater rate. And why is that?
So we talked about that initially. The water that, all of the water basically leaves, right? So none of it is going into the septic system. So there are no processing costs for the town associated with our.
Okay. So would you say the majority of your customers, either if you truck it out or they come get it, is not Stony Plain residents?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if they're not Stony Plain residents, and we've already seen that if you're a Stony Plain resident and you have a water meter, you pay this $32 a month, fixed fee, which Clearwater pays one time, $16.10 and $16.10. Okay. So if I did calculated math based on the numbers that you provided, if we, you said most of your cistern users use approximately 13 cubic meters. We'll just use 15, so that's between the 20 that we used as our average to your 13. So if we use, so 807 homes per se, if they were located within the town of Stony Plain, and then they had to pay the $32.20, which is $16.10 for the water and $16.10 for the sewer. Yes, but that's because they're leaving their community. I'm saying if they were in our community. So if they were a house within our municipal borders and they had water and sewer access to it, that's what they'd be paying, right? So that will work out to about $26,000 a month that the residents of Stony Plain are subsidizing the residents of Parkland County that would not have a water meter.
you have no costs associated with it whatsoever. So I thought it was very fair on everybody's part that you didn't charge us that, or we don't use that, right? Different than everybody else in water, we still half that number. I don't know why that would be a different calculation. And I get what you're getting at, that we would like to see perhaps a meter fee for each one of our customers, something along those lines. I understand that. Like, I'm not saying we want to get out of paying our fair share. If we can come up with some sort of number for that. We kind of came up with a few different things. We were able to sit down and go over them.
Okay.
But there's maybe some options for that.
Right, and that was one of the reasons why I voted in favor, is because I think one of our councillors around here, we talked about it, that in a condo situation or an apartment, there's 1 meter going in there. But that 1 meter is servicing 60 units, which has an extra strain on our community than just having that 1 meter do a single family home. Right? So if each one of those units were paying that 1620 and 1610, so make it whatever, right? Then that would mean that the rest of our residents would pay less on that fixed fee because there's more to spread that around. So what I'm seeing when we're debating this is that we as the residents of Stony Plain, we're paying this fixed fee for the infrastructure services, which then the water left our community to service Parkland County, which they don't give us any money back for our utilities, right, for our sewers.
If I agree with you, sure, we should be paying our part of the water portion of it. I think that would be fair. Now, to offset that a little bit, though, don't you agree that you want one service such as ours, the service, self-esteem on water is 6 to whatever number you want to pay, 600 houses. For sure, it costs way less to service us than it does all those other services. There should be consideration
Yes.
for that as well, right?
Yes, and I agree with you there, because I have a business as well, and makes it the more volume that I get, the lower the cost could be. Right? And that could be discussed around council, or it could be discussed at another time. But that'd be a one-off based on the conversations with mayor's council. The reason we changed, I think it was 6 to 1, or during that motion when we changed the rate model, was that we wanted equality for everybody, and you mentioned that too. Right? So a lot of the water was leaving our community that was never paid for our utilities, for sewer, for staff time, and for everything else. So we were trying to bring it to a more equitable system for our residents.
Doesn't the water go straight to the line to Westlake? Our stations
Yes.
are not the same.
Yes. Yes. So Wild buys the water from Parkland Capital Region Water Services at the same rate that is sold to the municipality. And from listening to Councilor Plechko, so Wild has their own, which they charge $4 for, which means they get the water at $2, and then they double it. Right? And the same with Sturgeon. Sturgeon gets it for about $2, I'm guessing, and they do 1.15% at 3.6. Right?
So just getting back to your point that you had before, so as far as us putting money back into the infrastructure, so the way that the split was before, I think you were still contributing. So the 1610 was operating costs, correct? And then infrastructure and everything else was already built into the variable rate. Correct. So we were already paying the full variable rate. So we were making a contribution to infrastructure and such. Now, we were paying a reduced amount compared to the average household for the operating costs, but we're also doing a ton of volume that our water would have cost you much less to service. So yeah, we were saving a little bit there, but we're also doing it costing you way less for the other portion of it. So I would almost say that the two almost balance each other out.
Okay, good conversation. Councilor Plechko?
Yes. So you just made reference to 1610. So let's use that number based on the 807 that we're talking about. That total is $12,992. So when we looked at this rate structure for our community, we looked at it based on equality for all businesses within the community. That includes the car washes, the restaurants, the condominiums, everybody in town. What we wanted to get away from and what we were trying to do was make it fair for everybody within our community. So everybody paid exactly the same. So if we base it on what we did, based on your one-time fee of $16.10, and you're using 800 houses, you're actually benefiting that, and our town residents were subsidizing your business. So what we tried to do was make it fair for everybody, which I believe is what we've council has done, is we've made it very fair and equitable for everybody. I understand what you say when it comes to being in business. We all own our own businesses, and at times there's things that are a little bit out of our control. And I think this is one of them. We've got a rate that's here, and reducing your rate, would you feel that that's fair for your specific business and not for us to look at all business within the community that have high volume of water with 1 meter? So condominiums, for example, is a really good example of similar thing. They pay 1 meter fee and then the amount of water they use. So again, what we tried to do was make it fair for everybody. So how would we make that fair for one business to reduce that and not look at that for all businesses and be amicable?
Maybe you do have to look at it for all. Do you think it's fair right now? Like you've given a great deal to your residents now. You're facing a substantial increase, not taking into account volume. Do you feel, if you're looking at fair, do you feel that the cost to deliver a cubic meter of water to us is the same as delivering a cubic meter of water split amongst 600, 700, 800 services? The cost to do those two different services is the same. If you deliver 1 cubic meter to each of 800 houses, let's say, or you deliver 800 cubic meters to one service, which one do you think is cheaper?
Again, that we'd have to look at that in depth. For me, that I would need to see that in depth, because the amount of water that goes through that house is minimal compared to the amount of water that's going through your line. So the wear and tear on the house one may be less, maybe more to begin with, but less over time, where yours may be more over time. So I think that's something we'd have to really consider. It's a good argument to point for all aspects of it. At the end of the day, we have to do what's fair for everybody. And I think that's how we kind of looked at it, was what's fair today should be fair for everybody. And again, what we had to look at was, do we want our residents in our community to subsidize the outlying area? And I think the answer unanimously through the people in our community and our council was, we don't want to subsidize anybody, and we don't want anybody to have to subsidize that rate.
I'm not looking to get subsidized. I think there's someplace in between there. You're now charging us the full out, not taking any account whatsoever for volume or the lesser cost that it is to service us. You're giving us no benefit, no credit for that whatsoever. Right? It's for sure it costs less to service us than it does 800 houses. You don't have to think about that very long. You have 800 different lines, you have 800 different meters, you have 800 different shutoffs, you have 800 different invoices going out. You have one of everything.
Yep. No, and there's some good conversation here, and I can see your points, and I can see members of council's points. Maybe there is something that we can work out a deal. I think members of council have brought up many times regarding the exit from your place of the water spilling and causing extra wear on the road. That might be just a discussion to have if we're going to negotiate anything. Deputy Mayor?
With regards to this evening, I've heard the word equal, I've heard the word equitable, I've heard the word fair, but when we look at this system, it's not all of those, because when you look at the low-end user, so somebody that's using 10 cubic meters, for example, they're not paying maybe the same relative percentage of the cost for the infrastructure that we should all be paying equitably and fairly for. So in terms of when we look at what your discussion with regards to infrastructure, that we all need to be paying for the future, and we all need to be paying a fair amount for the future. So with that, I just wanted to make that comment. We are subsidizing the low-end user with regards to infrastructure, with regards to this. What I would like to know is from our administration, with regards to, if you could just kind of go over the rationale for going to the variable rate and the cost. You've mentioned in the past to us that there was no change in the revenue that was received by the town, and yet costs, I think, have gone up, and so if we could just have a little bit more justification for it, I'd appreciate that.
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor Matties. So that is correct. When the variable rate was passed, the town did not see any additional revenue for that. Typical with previous years, there's always additional cost to operate these systems because it's staff. So like our other staff, they had cost of living increases as well as maintaining the infrastructure. So I think, that on the expenditure side, those continue to increase sort of consistent with prior years. And this move wasn't put forth to generate extra revenue.
Okay.
But we have had increased costs, so we haven't generated extra revenue, but we've taken a hit financially with regards to it. Is that correct?
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor. So if the rate had stayed the same, I would say the town would be in the same situation. So we wouldn't generate any more revenue, but costs keep. And so I guess there was two things happening. Maybe that clarifies it. Is so the rate model changed, as well as there was increases on the rate. So if the rate model had not changed, there would have been increases in the rate for the variable rate going forward. But there was actually two things that happened this year. So the rate changed from the fixed to the variable, as well as that increase, because there were additional costs that needed to be recovered, if that helps.
I'm not quite clear. So when we look at what was presented was there's no additional revenue coming in. So where did the money come from to pay for the extra costs?
Okay. I'll take a guess at that.
If I can just clarify too. So as the general managers alluded to, there's sort of two separate things that occurred, if you want to say, in the fourth quarter of last year related to water rates. When we say the change from the fixed rates to the variable system was revenue neutral, the system, the rate model was not designed to increase revenues. As the general manager was just indicating, but secondary to that, the actual rate increase, which is applied through the corporate plan, was in fact that, a rate increase, and saw that extra revenue coming in. And I'll leave it at that, Your Worship, to see if perhaps that's a bit clearer.
Okay. Is that clear?
So there was a rate increase.
Yes, when we did it in the corporate plan, but not part as us changing the rate model. So the rate model was changed to be equal if everything stayed the same. But in the corporate plan of 2019, when that came in November, when we debated, there was an increase for 2019. So, we have some paperwork here from Rick and Alan, and we're using 2018 and 2019 rates. So the 2019 is the full variable rate. And the 2018 we used was the fixed. So can you guys backtrack it so that 2018 is the full variable, so that we can actually show apples to apples? Because right now we're not talking the same language. You're talking about a rate increase and a model change, right? So now you're adding two things. So you're comparing water at this thing and water at this thing. So they need to be at the same.
What's the, sorry, what was the rate increase approximately percentage-wise?
Yes.
Your worship, it was 4.9% increase from 18 to 19.
Okay.
So we would be 36%.
Okay. Okay, any more questions of some clarity or understanding to our presentation? Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to administration, we have one other commercial water supplier in town, being Joffrey's Water. I'm just wondering, have we had any communications with them? Have they expressed any difficulties with these changes, any problems with these changes?
Your worship, through to Councilor Laurie, between myself and the general manager, I don't believe we have been contacted.
And have we been in contact with them to ensure that they fully understand the ramifications of the changes?
Just generic.
Your worship, don't believe we've had direct contact with them to go through the rates. We would just say, you mean through the regular communication as per anybody else.
Yes.
Thank you. And then just one more question to our guests. Rick and Alan, when I'm looking at the item number 2 here in the calculations, the competition comparison, where you list Edmonton, Atchison, Devon, Wild, Sturgeon, and then the Clearwater. Are any of the entities that you've listed here commercial for-profit companies, or are these service providers and municipalities providing a bulk water station?
Devon has both private and public.
Okay. And that 475 rate that you've listed, is that consistent with both the private and public, or is that an average between the two? Okay, so their private and their public are both at $4.75. Okay. Are there any other private water suppliers in this region, bulk water suppliers in this region? Not that you're aware of. Okay, thank you.
And then just one point to Joffrey's. The increase to Joffrey's, I'm sure it's a little bit of a problem for them, but it wouldn't be nearly the problem it is to us, because the margin markup for what he pays for the water compared to what he pays for is a massive gap there. Because he's doing it in small quantities, right? Whereas we would run a smaller margin in large quantities. So it would affect his bottom line, but I don't think it would affect us in areas ours. It would be more labor intensive. He would have other contributing factors before he sells his bottled water, whereas we basically, just meet it and pass it. So there'd be a portion of his cost, but it's a large portion of our cost.
Any other questions? Good.
What would be fair for you people in your perception?
I was looking for my paper, but I had a few different things, so I can't find it. We had a few different options. Somewhere's meeting in the middle. Obviously, we would like as cheap as possible. We understand that it goes through services. If we can find some sort of happy medium that makes you feel comfortable working a percentage of it, but you're still accounting for the fact that we're one invoice for you coming out of one service, and that, there should be some sort of discount involved. My finger exactly on what's a fair number for us. I do quite a small one. I mean, we'd like to just sit down and talk and try to come up with something that's fair. We were at the last council meeting, and I don't go to a lot of these council meetings, but I watched how they operated, and I noticed that, especially from the mayor, that the word fair came up multiple times. In dealing with school zone parking and the photo radar and a few other things. And I like another meeting like that. I thought this is probably a group of people that we can talk to and be reasonable to come up with some sort of solution that works for everybody.
Yep.
I just like the opportunity, perhaps, I don't know how these things work, if you sit down with council, or if you sit down with staff and work out a few different scenarios and then come back to you again. I'm not sure how it works.
Well, we'll see how this goes after this. This is the presentation, so and that's what it is. Later on in the business items, or even in a future meeting, if a member of council wants to make a motion to direct or bring some information back, that could be discussed. I am about making sure this is fair, so this will not be a one-off. If we ever discuss anything like this, it would be a policy change that we will apply to large volume users, or we don't, right? But that is a discussion amongst council that we will have, and after that, it is done. So that's where we are. We got your feedback. We understand what your thoughts are, and then members of council can talk about that later. And then from there, we can direct administration to do whatever we need to do. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and taking the time to voice your concerns and some of the issues in our community. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 5, Council. There's no statutory public hearings. So we're moving on straight to adoption of council minutes. So this is the RCM of January 28th and the GMP of February 4th. Councillor Bennett, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Town Council approve the January 28th, 2019 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Okay.
And the governance and priorities meeting of February 4th, 2019.
Okay. Thank you. I noticed there's only one motion there. So do we want to lump them together or should we separate the ones because they're RCMs and GMPs?
Your Worship, we had only anticipated the combination of the board, committees, and commissions, but if this is desired to be combined, it could. We have it presented separately for tonight.
Okay. Council, what is your flavor on this? Should we just adopt both of them at the same time? We can talk about both of them? Yes. Okay, so the motion will be to adopt 6.1 and 6.2 as presented. Thank you. Members of council, you've obviously read the January 28th and February 4th meeting dates. Any errors, omissions, or corrections that need to be done? Okay, see none, I didn't see any either, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, there is no council boards, commissions, and committee minutes. There's no bylaws tonight. So we're moving in straight to business items. 9.1 is the business bylaw 2596. Yes, we can. Okay, before we move to business items, we'll recess. 10 minutes, more or less, 8 minutes. Okay. with business items. Councillor Bennett. We're moving on to business items 9.1. Councillor Meyer, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I make a motion the town council accept the business license bylaw report for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Administration, go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to all of council for the opportunity to speak this evening. As directed by council at the December 2018 regular meeting, administration was requested to bring the business license bylaw back to chambers. At the December meeting, administration was prepared to propose an updated fee schedule to the business license bylaw. That proposed fee schedule included an overall increase in business license revenue of $10,000, which is reflected in the 2019 corporate plan. Since the December meeting, administration conducted further review on both internal processes and regional municipalities in regards to their fee structures for consistency. Based on further investigation, administration does not recommend any updates to the business license bylaw at this time and feels it would be appropriate to maintain the content and fees as currently stated. With administration not pursuing the new bylaw, this would account for a $10,000 adjustment in revenue to the 2019 corporate plan. The current bylaw and fee schedule is attached to the lead sheet for your reference, and I'd be happy to address any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, administration. Members of council, any questions for administration? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and not so much a question as a general comment. I appreciate administration's thorough review of this, and I appreciate the fact that administration has brought this back status quo as to what it was. I believe there were a few of us who were quite shocked when we saw this initial bylaw change come through, though yes, that $10,000 was reflected in the corporate plan. It wasn't very clearly stated in the corporate plan that that was due to business license increases. So we are very appreciative that administration has gone back to the table, understanding that this will take $10,000 of revenue out of the corporate plan, and we will have to deal with that in spring adjustments. I think we're prepared to deal with that, and I'm very happy that this has come to us in this form tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for comment. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification. I know that with some of our business license bylaws, for instance, with the cannabis, we have a date to relook at those. That would be probably in October of 2019. So is the whole bylaw, the whole business license bylaw going to be looked at that time, or is it only for the cannabis rates?
Okay, good question. Sure.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Bennett, at the moment with the fee structure being attached to the bylaw, it would be bringing the whole bylaw back. And then at that point, it would be what we want to address with it if just the cannabis aspect.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions, comments? Okay. See none. Thank you for bringing this back. I too was kind of taken off guard when this was presented because even in the corporate plan, it was not highlighted that there was an increase in business license fees to make up for the 2019 corporate plan. So in the future, if there is increases, because I believe we do that for water and wastewater and all that stuff. The services, utilities are listed there. So this is one of those things that should be needed and listed. Okay, I see no more hands up. We'll call the question. All in favor for information? And that is carried. Moving on to 9.2, the advocacy strategy. Councillor Pletchko.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The council accept the advocacy strategy update for information.
Okay, go ahead, administration.
Good evening, Your Worship, and members of council. As you're very much aware, Albertans will be heading to the polls in the coming months for an election of a new government. In an effort to provide further transparency around key issues and priorities of provincial government concern for the town, we have prepared the attached summary report. Our objective is to ensure the town's priorities are understood by provincial government stakeholders and create a platform to expedite these with the newly elected government of Alberta. However, we have provided this update tonight also to ensure that the priorities are understood by our citizens. We recognize there are a multitude of issues and opportunities the town seeks to address with the provincial government. Through the ongoing advocacy strategy efforts of council and administration, those issues are monitored and actioned. However, at this critical juncture, 4 key challenges have been determined to have high value and impact on the future of Stony Plain. Those are First, the replacement of the Stony Plain Central School, which was identified in the 2018 provincial budget. We want to ensure that the design, construction, and opening of this facility continues to remain on schedule for the fall of 2021. Second, the town has submitted a request for partnership and funding support to develop a new regional recreation facility in Stony Plain. It's critical that the newly elected government of Alberta makes a commitment to fund the development of this facility. Third, the current state of uncertainty regarding our most significant source of funding from the province, that being the Municipal Sustainability Initiative, or MSI as we commonly refer to it, is cause for concern for all municipalities in Alberta. We've continued to lend our support to the messaging that MSI needs to be extended, providing stable and predictable infrastructure funding for local governments. Finally, our relationship with the province regarding the status and maintenance of Provincial Highway 779 and 628 has been an ongoing challenge. While we are currently in the midst of much-needed upgrades to both highways, the town will continue to pursue an improved level of authority to advance the development opportunities for both of these routes. With Council's endorsement, these priorities will be communicated formally to provincial stakeholders and in advance of the upcoming election. And administration will monitor the response to those. Those are my comments, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions from Council.
Okay. Thank you very much for this key priorities little booklet. It's very easy and succinct for members of council to read it and members of our residents in our community to take a look through there too and see what is high on council's priorities for the upcoming election. Members of council, any questions and comments regarding the update strategy booklet? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I'm very, very pleased to see what's come out of it. And I really just wanted to highlight as well, in respect to the new municipal funding agreement, I think it's very important to note that the current MSI agreement expires in 2021, and that agreement has no continuation to it at this point in time. Both Calgary and Edmonton have been given security through the large city charters, and yet the rest of us have been left with certain uncertainties. In addition to this, through the MGA, the province actually requires us to do long-term projections and long-term budgeting, which exceeds 2021, to which they provide us with secure funding for. So I'm very, very excited to see this in here, and I hope this is an issue because, quite frankly, it matters to all Albertans. It matters to everybody across this province, and it specifically matters to our residents that we get some type of sustainable funding for our communities back from the province and some assurance as to what that's going to be, that it's predictable so that we can rely on it for years to come. So thank you very much to administration for the work on this.
Thanks for your comments, Councilor Laurie. Any other questions, comments? Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, through to administration, with regards to our strategic priorities this year, environment was one of them. And again, through the AMA, which is our Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, they had unanimous support for what's called extended producer responsibility. And we as a community, I hope that even though it's not listed in this book, that we do continue to advocate for that on every chance that we have, because that is one opportunity where we can reduce the economic footprint for not only this generation, but for future generations. And we can also ensure that our overall cost, because right now every consumer, every one of our citizens is paying twice for this for recycling services. We do have two excellent other recycling programs, one for our glass and one for our electronics, our oil, our paint, and the other one's just escaping me right now. But this is another opportunity to add and improve on our recycling and our overall process, so we make sure that that's looked after. Thank you.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Matties and all of council, I believe there's an item coming to council at a future council meeting to speak specifically about the extended producer responsibility, my apologies, ERP program for council to speak to that directly. So, but it is something that we're monitoring.
Okay, and thank you. And if council recalls, we did draft a letter to support Calgary, and that went out quite a few months ago. So we're already on the bandwagon and doing this already?
Your Worship, I think we're being asked to do that again, to send another letter of support.
So, okay, sounds good. Any other questions and comments? Okay, Councillor Bennett?
Yeah, I'm just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, this is a change for those of us who have been on council for a while. Advocacy of this nature was never stated quite as emphatically and as well articulated as it is here. And I'm just really happy to see it, and I think that is something our residents need to see also, so that they know exactly what we are advocating for, and that they can also do advocating in their own way. I'm just curious as to other municipalities our size, and whether or not they have initiated this kind of initiative. Do you have any idea if any other municipalities have embarked on this?
Through your worship to Councillor Bennett and all of council, I don't know if other municipalities are doing exactly similar to the type of process that we've presented to you this evening, but certainly I would say that that all of the municipalities within the capital region have an advocacy strategy that they monitor and work with councils directly on. And it's certainly something that we've seen an advancement with even the Edmonton Metro Regional Board. So that there has been, I would say, over the last few years, certainly, if not longer, a heightened sense of need for this type of work, and for councils and elected officials to speak with sort of a unified, clear, concise messaging around needs and requirements. It's become more of almost like a professionalized approach to what used to be typically sort of outsourced lobbying in a lot of ways. It's done more in-house and more directly with those that are ambassadors and representatives of the communities.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I see none. Thank you very much for your work, administration. I'll call the question. All in favor for information? That's carried. Okay, moving on to 2018 audit planning report. Councillor Loy, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council accept the 2018 audit planning report as presented for information.
Okay, thank you. This is a yearly thing that we think. Go ahead, administration.
Your Worship, as a reminder, Council appointed the Auditor Metrics Group back in October. They're required to communicate with Council directly their plan for the year, and that's attached to your lead sheet tonight. They'll be back in Council chambers on April 23rd to report the results of that, and the letter on page 55 does speak to exactly what they'll be communicating. And again, just a reminder that the auditor reports directly to Council, and that, you know, they disclose that they're independent and their work has begun with administration. We've had some interim auditors in and have been supplying the documents they need, and they're in to do the majority of their work the middle of March. And I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions regarding this? No. Just one question. Council asked a question about going for RFP after this for the 2019 year. So when does administration plan to bring that forward to the public?
Your Worship, we've started talking about it internally, and we'll pull together the RFP to go out once we finish this audit. So after, you know, end of April, so May, June, we'll post the RFP, and in summer bring back a recommendation for council to decide on the external auditor going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Moving on to 9.4, which is the strategic plan and corporate plan update. Deputy Mayor, please.
Q4 2018 strategic plan and corporate plan report for information.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Worship, and to members of council. For you this evening, we've provided for your review and consideration a report on the strategic plan and the corporate plan strategic initiatives for the fourth quarter of 2018. This is a new strategic report format being presented to you tonight. Administration will be refining, maintaining the report and presenting it to you on a quarterly basis going forward. I would like to highlight a few results in the report, and then I'd be open to any questions or comments that you might have for me this evening. I'll begin with the strategic plan report. Under the governance and partners theme, which is on pages 60 to 62, this section really speaks to how we engage with the community and utilize integrated decision-making as well as manage the community's growth. The following initiatives were significantly advanced in 2018, as I'm sure you're all aware. Notably, the upgrades to Highway 779 and 628, which are partially completed at this point. The provincial advocate, or the council's advocacy strategy work, which we just spoke about a few moments ago, both developed and implemented. The approval of policies for both public participation as well as policy development itself, and the redevelopment and launch of the town's website were key initiatives under that section of the strategic plan. Under the economic development or economic opportunity theme, which are highlighted on pages 63 and 64, this section focuses on how we utilize local economic development to create fiscal stability, balance commercial and residential growth, generate employment, and enhance community sustainability. Our commitment to this area is demonstrated through the following items that I wanted to highlight for you. A multi-year investment in the redevelopment of our downtown core, including the relocation and expansion of our library. The ongoing implementation of the economic development strategy, and the monitoring of this strategy through the Growth and Commerce Committee, as well as the engagement with our local businesses and development stakeholders. Next, the support infrastructure theme, which is on pages 65 to 68, features the value and emphasis that is placed on the maintenance and innovation around recreation and cultural facilities, parks and open spaces, and our functional utilities. Our impact and effort in this section have resulted in consideration and design for a new recreation and cultural facilities, construction of a new RCMP facility in collaboration with the City of Spruce Grove, the framework to implement a regional public transit service, engagement and planning for a municipal cemetery, and the design and installation of community entrance and amenity signage. Next, the community development theme, which is featured on pages 69 to 72, outlines the unique physical, cultural, and social ways we build community. We have noted results and success in this section through the following: ongoing implementation of the Cultural Master Plan, ongoing community disaster resilience and emergency planning, ongoing commitment to family and community support services, enhancing the diversity of housing with support for projects like the Meridian Foundation's proposed affordable housing facility in Stony Plain, collaboration and provision of services for the replacement of the Stony Plain Central School, and the establishment of the Mayor's Task Force on Community and Citizen Development. The final strategic theme of environmental responsibilities, featured on pages 73 to 75, outline how we seek to balance the community's impact on the natural environment with its growth and development needs. Our key actions in this section have focused on the following: a regional facility feasibility study to process organic waste and recycling, and ongoing public engagement information regarding environmental programs, events, and services. The second part of the report provides an update on the strategic initiatives provided by Council or approved by Council in the 2018 corporate plan. These include the underground power line installation for Highway 779, the Old Town Community Plan, the town website redevelopment, the downtown library expansion, the downtown redevelopment Phase 2, the signage strategy implementation Phase 1, and the community engagement and conceptual design for recreation and cultural facility development. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Those are my comments regarding the report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that Council may have at this time.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, and this is a very nice format. It is easy for Council to have a quick look at it versus the booklet form. So, let's see, members of Council, any questions or comments regarding the presentation? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question has to do, I think our pages are different than your pages, administration. But on my page,
I was doing so good, and then I screwed up the numbers.
Is page 75, and it's the feasibility study.
Yes.
With the compost organic facility. I know that we accepted the report and the study, and our recommendation was not to proceed. But what would it take to open this initiative again? Is it further information as to new technology or new new technology that would be more cost effective? Could we then reopen this and look at it again? Or at what point can we open that up to our partners to say, maybe we should look at this?
Through your worship to Councillor Bennett, I think these initiatives are really driven by council's understanding of the issues and the needs that you see within the community. So I think that there's probably a few options that could bring that item to the forefront again. One would be kind of an understanding of advancement in technology or some sort of business case alternative than what was previously reviewed. But the second would be other factors with regional partnering that could make it more palatable and more of a likely possibility for success. I think what was looked at was a model at a specific point in time, and so that's something that council is always able to work with administration to identify if factors have changed and require that to be reconsidered or brought forward again.
So it wouldn't, administration is not strategically looking at this initiative in a focused way, but in a peripheral way, if you found out that there were other factors like new technology or a new business case, just bringing it to administration would probably be the best.
Yes, Councillor Bennett, that would probably be the best. I think we had a quick chit chat about this a couple weeks ago as a council. We said that because the organics facility doesn't warrant what we have right now. We can't without having more people join us. Currently, right now, Spruce Grove and Stony Plain are the only municipalities in the Tri-Region that does organic processing. The Parkland County doesn't. So for this facility to go ahead and for it to work, then we would need maybe Morinville, Leduc, Devon, Kalmar, west side of Edmonton. So I have said after that meeting that I would approach those mayors about something along the lines of, are you guys interested in sending your organic waste to us if we did a facility? And hopefully that Councillor Deputy Mayor Matties brings it back to the capital waste minimization, just to say that we did this and it does not warrant currently what we have, but if they all pitched in, it might, and then that might open the conversation again to relook at the feasibility. So the dollars and the engineering and all that stuff was done through a grant. So this didn't cost the municipalities anything, but the three of us got together because we wanted to look at to see if it made a difference. And based on that report, it doesn't make sense feasibly unless we're willing to, subsidize it considerably for this.
Your Worship, if I could maybe add a bit to Councillor Bennett's question as well. The other thing on this particular project, but even on general projects that, like in this instance, are recommended not to proceed. On this one, there's likely at least a half dozen to a dozen employees, administrative staff through all three of our municipalities that will keep their eye on this side of the operations. Attending conferences, mean they're professionals. They'll be following the changes as they move along. And although what this is indicating is that that particular project will not show up on anybody's work plan, so to speak, for this year for sure, and not any time into the future unless directed otherwise. There are a lot of people that will still understand and be aware of any changes. The other thing too, and Your Worship, you alluded to it, is that a lot of the work that was done, the engineering studies and the feasibility, will sit as a body of knowledge between the three municipalities and would remain relevant for, I would expect at least a few years, if not a little bit longer, as the volumes required and so on and so forth. So again, all three municipalities at this point in time chose not to proceed any further, but it does sit and stay with the organizations to a degree, at least for a couple of years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Bennett, a couple of things. I do know through the AMA Environment or Sustainability Environment Committee, as well as the Edmonton Region Waste Advisory Committee, that everybody is working and focused on the extended producer responsibility or some equivalent of that, and they're realizing that we need to have a provincial framework for recycling. So in terms of us moving forward, we've already got 2 very good provincial programs in place, and hopefully we can complement that, and then this information may be very, very valuable as we go through these processes moving forward. So I think that it's really good that we did it.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments on the strategy? Okay, see none. Thank you, administration, for the new format and providing the presentation. So I'll call the question. All in favor of the for information of the strategic plan? That's carried. Okay, and before we move to information items and council discussion, as members of the panel here can tell that there is a new individual sitting in the back right corner. So welcome, sir. Want to come sit forward?
I'm sure he'd love to.
Just going to put you on the hot spot. We received your the email saying that you are here. So why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself, and just something that we don't know.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name's Adam Sharman. I started last Monday as the Manager of Technology Services here at the town of Stony Plain. I'm joining the town after a 15-and-a-half-year career over at Sturgeon County as their Manager of Information Services. So I just want to say thanks for having me on board, and so far it has been a very good experience after 15 years at my previous organization. Everyone has done a very good job of making me feel at home and comfortable here at the town, so thank you.
Okay, welcome, Adam. Members of council, any questions? No? Thank you very much. Just one little complaint. The little red sign there, I can't see it.
It's a work in process. Your Worship will continue to take advice and feedback on recommended solutions.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome to the organization.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to information items and council discussion. So we'll start with Councillor Matties. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Do you know, I have nothing for this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Loy?
Yes, sir. 2 things. I don't know whether this is correct or not, but baby, it's cold outside.
Is that politically correct, sir?
I don't know. I've lost control of that, or whether that's not. I do have a question, though, on a serious note there. There's was to be a presentation by a Holocaust survivor tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And then I saw a note came through that said it was canceled. I'm still trying to determine whether that particular function is a go tomorrow night.
Yes, it is, Councillor Loy. That event is still a go. I think what was canceled was the original invite, because it was sent to, it was earmarked for the Elks Hall in Spruce Grove, which is not correct. It's actually in the Spruce Grove Hall at the Heritage Pavilion in Stony Plain. So members that should be attending, if you had signed up already. Oh, sorry. Okay. I believe the people who are attending were yourself, you as well. I didn't see you there. You're not there then. You were, and you were. So, and I will be there as well. That is at 7 p.m. at the Spruce Grove Hall, and that is Ms. Eva Olson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to confirm and again bring it to everybody's attention. I think these are very rare opportunities that we get to meet and hear the stories of such magnitude. So
yes, thank you. And it is a sold-out event, so we're glad that we're able to get our tickets in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pletchko?
I have nothing this evening, sir.
Okay. Councillor Meyer? Okay. Councillor Bennett?
Speaker for tomorrow night, so.
That's why we switch, Councillor. Better from start there to start to here.
Well, I just want to give everybody the opportunity. So 1 week I'll start there, the next time I start there. So, Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. You gave everybody an opportunity, and I still have 3 things on my list. So There are three quick things. First and foremost, just a follow-up with administration. It was noted in our Q4 update, continued discussions with CN. My memory serves me correct, CN committed to continue discussions on another pedestrian underpass and the future potential overpass for the town of Stony Plain, given the track twinning project. Last time administration updated us, CN had made some significant staffing changes, and we still, at that point, did not have any contacts in these conversations installed. Just curious if administration can update us as to if there's been any change in that situation.
Okay, go ahead.
To Councillor Laurie and all of council, there's been no update on that item, but we do need to do some follow-up with them because I think it's enough time has passed that we need to address that with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also in respect to the ATE discussion we had and the update the council was given with the new provider, I'm understanding there's some changes that have occurred with that. When I looked back into our corporate plan document for this year, we did have a significant reduction at that point in time in the fine revenue. Some of it was related to enforcement changes, some of it was related to compliance and so on and so forth. I'm just wondering if administration can give us an idea as to if there's an anticipated change in the proposed fine revenue based on the new agreement with the provider.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, members of council, I'll have to certainly go back and look at the previous provider versus this provider. I think actually this percentage is more in our favor, so I'll get that number back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And the last one is a question for administration. As it was brought to my attention today, given the baby it's cold outside, that there's a cord bylaw in existence in the town of Stony Plain, which restricts it from running across streets, sidewalks, so on and so forth. Very common practice. I'm just curious from an administration standpoint if they can confirm with us, is this something that our peace officers are actively looking for and enforcing, or is this something that's in place in case there was a complaint that was filed?
Good.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, I would suggest to you that if there's a safety concern, we'll address that safety concern. We're not actively going to run around town and start unplugging vehicles, particularly in this this type of weather. Guilty is charged once or twice. So certainly we understand. My neighbor had one going pretty much a half a block because his vehicle was parked up the street from his house. So certainly we understand that people have to get their vehicles moving.
Thank you very much for that clarification, administration. I'm sure our residents are going to be very happy to hear that we are not actively going out and trying to ensure that nobody is running a cord across, as long as it's being done in a safe manner. That's all I have this evening, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you very much. And just the FYI for members of council, tomorrow Edmonton Global is having a large announcement that is happening at 11 o'clock in the city of Edmonton. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Matties, for attending that. As well, Eva Olsen is that evening as well. Hopefully we'll see everybody there. I expect it to be a great event and a great presentation from a very, very strong and passionate lady. As well, the 14th is Valentine's Day, so have fun and make sure you show your Valentine what they mean to you. And if they don't, well then show them what they don't mean to you. But I think that you get more and more done by showing them what they actually mean to you than the other way around. So I advise you to show them what they mean to you. And on the 18th is Family Day, so enjoy your day with your family. The town office is closed that day, so nothing will be happening. So hopefully you guys have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you on the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, 25. That's good. See, I'm glad I have staff here that tells me exactly what day it is. So with that, any more council discussion and questions out of the meeting? No. Okay. Thank you, administration, for your presentations and your packages that are in our agenda. Thank you for members of council for reading it and to contributing to the questions and comments and the debate. So with that, we are adjourned. Okay.